Hello friends, my name is Steve and this is Steve Talks Books. Thank you for coming by, watching my weekly update. It's where I talk about what I've been reading, what I'm going to read, what I won't get to, and everything else in between. If you'd like to connect with me, the best places are forum at pagechewing.com. That's where we organize all of the events, all the read-alongs, all the podcasts, all that stuff. Come and drop by and say hello and chat with us. I can also be found on Twitter at Steve Talks Books, which I'm using less and less. And also my personal social media platform is Vero. You can find me at that one MFer on Vero. It's where I post all my personal stuff, all the stuff no one really cares about, but it's fun, that sweet, sweet dopamine. So let's start with what I was reading this week. This week I did finish The Court of Broken Knives by Anna Smith Spark, and it's some of my favorite combat. The world feels very lived in. The religions, the traditions, the motivations of the characters I thought was all really interesting. And it's more than just surface level. There's more to it than just, a story. You could tell there's more to the story that you can just read it, but you start to question the motivations and start to question, for instance, if there's too long of a period of peace, do people get complacent? Do we crave conflict? Is that something that we initiate because we get tired of being having like a peaceful period? Is that something that we do, whether it's intentional or not? I thought that was all really interesting. And there's some creatures, some mythological creatures in the story that is done really well, and you're afraid of them. So I won't give too much away because I don't like to give spoilers, but enjoyed it quite a bit. We are having a group read for this series, and I'll talk more about that here in a minute. And after I finished The Court of Broken Knives, The Court of Broken Knives did take me a while. I was trying to really take my time. The writing is very thick. There's a lot that happens in a short period of time. There's very few words, but a lot happens in those words. So it's very well written, and it has a very descriptive style to it. So I did enjoy the writing. I had to slow down. Reading The Court of Broken Knives, I did start to realize, or I still did start to question, if I'm going too fast. Am I not taking my time? Am I not spending time just to smell the roses and just enjoy the riding and not worry about finishing in a certain amount of time? Just enjoy the ride. And that's something that I'm trying to be more careful about now, is just taking my time and not trying to rush. Not that I felt like I was rushing before, but I start to question, am I not enjoying this as much as I can be because I'm, for some reason, in a hurry, or feel the need to keep up, or feel the need to finish this a certain amount of time? So now I'm pretty well spread out, that I have enough space in between my reads. I don't have to hurry. I don't feel like I'm being rushed. I'm just taking my time. So I took that same approach into my reread of The Darkness That Comes Before by R. Scott Baker. We are having a podcast for each part. So part one we did record on Friday with a couple of friends, Katerina and Daniel. So we sat down for over an hour and discussed part one. And there's a ton that I missed on part one. Even on the reread, I sat and took notes. And not that it's one of those books that you have to take notes, but there's just a ton that happens, especially in the prologue, in the two sections of the prologue. There's just so much stuff that happens, and it's just, there's so many things, so many lines in it I just love reading these books. So that's another book. I'm trying to just take my time with it. I'm trying to just relax and enjoy the ride. So after I finish my reread, I'm about halfway through, almost halfway. So once I finish The Darkness That Comes Before, I will be moving on to Caliban's War. It's the second book in the Expanse series. We are having a live stream for that early, I think it's August 13th. So that's open to anyone who wants to join. So anyone is open to join any of the stuff I talk about. Just drop by our forum and let us know you'd like to come. The Darkness That Comes Before, we are meeting every Friday for the podcast, and we're discussing one part every Friday. But I'm so hooked on this book, I couldn't stop at part one. I had to continue, and I'm almost done with part two. So I'm going to be reading ahead, but we're going to be discussing each part by part every Friday for the next few Fridays. So that's open to anyone. It is audio only, so you don't need a camera to join. You can just join with your microphone. You don't have to be on camera. It's just audio only. We did turn on our cameras just because it's out of habit, just to say hello. but it's not necessary. It's just, if you'd like to, you can, but it's just audio only. And speaking of the podcast, that episode, to my surprise, is one of the most downloaded episodes on the podcast ever in less than 48 hours. It's the top 5 downloaded podcast. And not that I get a ton of downloads, I don't get that many really, but to it be top 5 in 2 days, that's the most popular podcast I've uploaded on my podcast. So thank you to all of you who have taken the time to listen. And it was our first time discussing something. So, sometimes when you get groups together, it takes some time to get like a cadence. So I'm sure that by the end of that hour, we are already feeling more comfortable with each other. It just takes some time to get used to picking up on those cues on when you should talk and when you should let someone else talk. It just takes a minute to kind of get your footing. So I'm confident that we'll get that together. And that is open to anyone. We do have a couple of spots open. I don't want it to be too full because then, I want everyone to have a chance to talk. But it is open if you'd like to join. All the information is on our event calendar on our forum. So this week on the channel, I will have the Negative Space Review that I've been talking about for a while by B.R. Yeager. It's a book that I thoroughly enjoyed and I'm still thinking about. It's one of those books that really sticks with you and makes you want to study some scientific articles and scientific theories after you're done reading it. It was very, very thought-provoking. And yeah, it's begging to be reread. So I'd love to read that with more people. That is just a book you want to discuss with other people when you're finished. It's just one of those books. Some books you can read and you can enjoy, and it's like, well, that was great, and you don't feel the need to discuss it. You don't feel like there's a whole lot more to talk about, and that's okay. This is one of those books that you just want to, that there's a lot more to it than you read the first time. So I'd love to do that if anyone's interested. So also this week, there is no Friday conversation on the channel this week. I'm taking a week off. I do have some plans. I think I want to change things up. We were talking about it on the forum this week. I think we're going to go every other week at least, or maybe even just once a month. So we'll see how that works out. But for sure, the next week, I won't be having a Friday conversation this week. The following week, I'm not too sure. I have a guest that I'm going to contact that will probably tell me to buzz off, but I'm going to ask them anyway. So we'll see how that works out. We'll see how things work out. Cross your fingers for me. You never know. So anyway, so that's this week on the podcast or on the channel. Last week I did have the page tuning episode with T. Thorne Coyle. We discussed magic. We discussed indie versus traditional publishing for authors, the pros and cons to each. Where the industry is going. We talked about we talked about what it's like to work in a woman-run peep show. Yes, we discussed that. So we covered a few different topics, and we went about 50 minutes or so. So that's on the podcast or on the channel if you'd like to watch or listen to that. And it wasn't on this channel, but I was on Mike's book reviews channel, which is so eerie to me still. I just can't get over it. I'm on Mike's channel for Saturday nights, and it's really neat because I was on that discussion with SFF 180, and of course my friend Yulene from Yulene Reads. Yulene and I have been kind of buddies for a while now, and we started about the same time. We do a lot of group reads together. She's my go-to for suggestions. So to be on that, the two of us at the same time was really made it even more special to do that with her. So that was just, it's weird being on Mike's channel. I mentioned this last night, but he's the reason I started doing this. So, I have had a chance to speak with him a few other times on my channel, but to be on his channel is kind of like going over to his house kind of thing. It's kind of like that's his turf. So to be on his channel and be talking to him and with SFF 180 and Yolene and with all the people in the chat, it was really, really weird in a good way. It's just weird. And also on Friday night, we had the Friday conversation with Lana from Lauren Lullabies. We had Kay from Kay's Hidden Shelf and Jose from Amazing Worlds. That was a great time. We had a lot of fun chatting. And everyone in the chat who comes by, thank you for taking the time to drop by and chat. I'm open to suggestions on the Friday conversation. I wanted to try and get enough guests to come by, and I haven't gotten to the point where I don't have people to invite. I'm afraid I might get to that point to find people to come by every week, because it's a lot of people to invite every week, and it's worked out really well so far. But I don't want to get to the point where I'm having trouble finding people to come and talk, because it is a long time to come and talk on a Friday night. So I'm not sure. I would like to keep the group format going. I might do a single guest, but I'm open to suggestions. So anyone, I'm open. If any of you have suggestions or ideas, I'm all ears. So let me know. If you have any thoughts on that, I'd love to hear them. Every Saturday, I upload a short story. I read a short story and I upload it to the podcast. This week I did read Kragen. It's by Catherine McCarthy. It is one of my all-time favorite short stories, and Catherine did send me the flash version of the story, so it's not as long, and it was, I think, 4 pages long, and that, for me, to read a short story is a lot. So it was probably the longest one I've read yet, but I really wanted to read it, and it takes me forever. So I was thrilled, but I was really nervous to get it wrong or to not represent it the right way. So thanks again to Catherine McCarthy for letting me read that short story. It's in Myths and Megaliths is a full version, and then it is a great short story collection. I love Catherine's writing, and that Kragen is just gut-wrenching. It really, really got to me. It just floored me when I read it. So I hope, if you do listen, I hope you enjoy me reading the flash version of it. It's a really, really haunting and just guttural story. It really got to me. So speaking of the podcast, I've been tossing around the idea, and this is something I've been thinking about for a while. I wanted to get everyone's opinion, or if anyone's interested in this, is I would like to, I thought about starting a comic book channel. I don't want to roll comic books into this channel, because when you start mixing and matching, it gets kind of weird. It's better to just start a whole new channel, and that in itself is an adventure. So after the experience on Friday, this is something I've been thinking about starting a podcast only version of something that doesn't include as much editing and equipment and everything else. And then after our discussion Friday, I realized how many people are just not into being on camera. They're willing to come by and chat on a podcast when it's audio only, but it's just not really something they're interested in doing for various reasons. So I did think it might be time for me to start a comic book podcast just dedicated to comic books. And I thought we could start reading classics or newer books, maybe like Watchmen, V for Vendetta. We can even start reading stuff like The Boys, something that's been adapted recently that's, people are interested in and want to try reading the book. But I would love to start, or even something like Invincible. I think Invincible is a great series. I loved reading that one. I haven't seen the adaptation yet, but I would love to do something like that. Even starting with something like Watchmen, I think it would be great, because it's one of the all-time best books out there. I mean, it's a classic. So I thought about doing something like that. I might start doing that and just do audio only. If anyone's interested in that, or whether you like to listen or like to come by and chat about books, comics are a lot less time investment than novels, because you can whip out a graphic novel in a couple of hours maybe. So it's a lot less time investment. So it's something I'm tossing around. So I might just do that in a couple of weeks. I might just take the plunge and give it a try. But let me know what you think, if that's something you'd be interested in or like to come by and even participate with. Anyone's open. Anyone's free to do it. I think it might be fun. So just want to mention we have some upcoming group reads. I always want to tell everyone about these. We have the Prince of Nothing group read going on right now. We are doing the podcast for each part, but I do also plan on having a live stream for each book after I finish the Prince of the Darkness that comes before it. Plan on having a live stream for it. So the podcast will be a little bit behind what I'll be actually doing. So I might have the live stream, but still be discussing each part of the podcast, just because I have to get to the next book in my schedule. And if I start mixing and matching books, I get confused. My brain can't handle it. So I do plan on having a live stream, but like I said, the podcast is there too. And also we are reading the Empires of Dust trilogy. We're having a live stream with Anna Smith Spark on September 10th, and that is open to anyone. And Anna has told me that she'll have some goodies and some giveaways for people who come by and contribute. We do have a couple of spots open on that live stream, so it's open to anyone who wants to join. So this week, I'd like to shout out another booktuber, and this week, I'd like to shout out Big Al Does Booktube. It's a newer channel, and it's always tough getting going, so I always like to shout out newer channels just to give them a hand. So go by, check out the channel. He has a lot of reviews, a lot of fantasy book reviews. They're pretty quick and to the point, and it really helps out to get a thumbs up, to get a view, to get a subscription or a comment. All that really goes a long way. So go check out Big Al Does Booktube. Excuse me. Go check out Big Al's channel. Say hello, and if it's for you, then subscribe. So every week I try to bring questions for all of you. And every week, during the week, I think that'd be a great question for the update video. And then I forget what question it was. So I'll just start writing them down. This week I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. The first thing is, when do you give up on a series? If you're reading a long series, how many books do you give it before you say, this isn't for me? I'm enjoying it, but I'm not enjoying it enough to continue. Let's say a trilogy. Do you give it 2 books? Do you give it 1 book? For longer series, like a 10-book series, how many books do you give it? Do you just, if you DNF the first book, do you ever come back to it? Or is it just you throw in the towel? I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are on that. Also, I wanted to ask you about the about the YouTube rabbit hole. I think we can all relate to this. And when I say the YouTube rabbit hole, I mean if you're interested in a topic, you start to watch videos about it, and then you get recommended other videos that are related to it, and you just go down this rabbit hole. For instance, I've been watching videos about mountain biking van life, because I would love to load up my mountain bike and drive around the country and just ride different trails all over the country. That's kind of, one of those things I like to do eventually. And I started watching videos about like setups and just for fun, like van setups and living, how to organize and, getting a van and building it up, just kind of for fun and what it's like to live on the road like that. And you kind of go in this rabbit hole, and I started watching these other videos I got sucked in this rabbit hole. Like, there's a channel, I forget his name. His first name's Steve, but I'll put the channel down below. But he just camps in these weird places. He'll go and he'll camp in like a culvert that's buried under a road. And he'll camp in there all night, or he'll camp in his car, or he'll camp on a road sign, or he'll camp underneath a billboard, or whatever. So, going into this, trying to learn about van life, about mountain biking van life, I ended up going down this rabbit hole, and then now I'm like an expert on how to live in your car stealth live in your car, what parking lots are the best ones to sleep in for the night, or how to, like what gym memberships you should get to shower, because you won't have a shower in your van. So it's just funny that you fall down this rabbit hole. So what rabbit holes do you fall into, if you've fallen into one recently? Let me know in the comments if there's something that you've fallen into that you just can't seem to get out of. So how are you doing? I'd love to hear how your week's going. What did you have last week? What do you have this week? What are you reading? What are you watching? What are you listening to? Last week I did record my update before the concert we had. We did go see Train, Jewel, and Blues Traveler. My son is a big Train fan, so he for his birthday was recent. He had a birthday recently. He has to go to this concert, so we went. And I'm not the biggest Train fan, to be honest. I mean, they're okay. I'm not, when they first started in like the late 90s, they were more alternative almost. Now they're more pop, and that's cool and everything. It's just not really what I mentioned, what I typically listen to. Blues Traveler was great. They put on a really good show. They did a lot of improv and a lot of, just kind of jamming. Did some fun covers, and Jewel was the second act, and she can still sing. She can still sing. So that was a good one. And Train, even though I'm not crazy about their music, they did put on a really good show. There was one song, and I forget what song it was, but they were out there performing, and the people in the crowd were throwing their phones up, and he would grab their phones while he was singing and take a selfie and throw it back at them. He did that like 20 times, and he would interact with the crowd, and that makes a show that I didn't really care for the music, but it made it fun because he interacted with the crowd. And there's some bands that are really great at doing that. That makes a show that you may not be all that into enjoyable. Another band that is really great at that is Godsmack. I don't know if you've been to a Godsmack concert, but they put on a really good live show. They interact with the crowd. They do some fun things to kind of have it feel like you're involved in the performance. So if you'd like to connect with me, all the links are down below. Hope you come by and join our forum, say hello, join some of the events we have going on. I'd love to hear from you, how you're doing, what are you reading, watching, listening to. I hope you have a great week, and I will talk to you soon.